Hi, I'm Bob Tabor with Developer University. For more of my training videos for beginners, please visit me at devu.com. So we saw the My Namespace pop up ever so briefly in the previous lesson whenever I was trying to find a good code example to write text to a file. And I saw the help article on MSDN. I'm like, oh, they cheated. They used the My Namespace. Well, the good news is that the My Namespace is available to Visual Basic developers, and it's unique for Visual Basic. Basically, the developers of Visual Basic went around and found all the most useful classes in the .NET Framework class library that we'd want to use for finding things out about a computer or about the file system or working with the network or working with specific peripherals, and made them all available in one concise, tiny little spot so that we can always go there first to see if they've got something for us to use or if we have to go out on the internet and search to find some code snippets to actually help us implement some functionality. So at any rate, the My Namespace is automatically available to all Visual Basic projects. All we have to do is kind of navigate around and find what we're looking for inside of the namespace, and I'll show you how we'll do that in just a moment. So in this lesson, what I want to do is just show you a smattering of cool little things that you can do with the My Namespace, get your creativity flowing, and then maybe you can use it for something on one of your future projects. So it's great for things like getting information about the current computer that you're running on. It's great for working with files and folders on the computer, working with command line arguments into your command window application, and then also working with configuration files like the app.config file. So we'll show examples of all of these and a little bit more, but note that there's even more that you can do with it, and you just can take a few moments and navigate your way around using IntelliSense through the My Namespace. You can see that there are things like the application namespace, the computer namespace, the settings namespace, the user namespace, the web services namespace. All of these are shortcuts into the full .NET Framework class library, giving you quick access to some pretty cool functionality. All right, so let's start off really simple. We'll just do a console.writeline. And here we're going to go my.computer, and we'll just grab out the name. But notice here, now that I'm in the My Computer namespace, I can get to things like audio and I think the screen as well. You can get to the clipboard to copy and paste things onto the clipboard, to the clock, to the file system, find out information about the hardware of the computer you're currently on, work with the keyboard and the mouse and the network and the ports, and so much more. So very cool. So in this simple case, let's just grab the name of the computer, and then also what I'm going to do is grab the amount of memory that's currently physically available on my computer. But even note that about the info class, I can grab things like the UI culture, what language and country that I'm currently have installed in Windows 10, the operating system name and version, the platform that we're running on, total physical memory and virtual memory and things like that. But let's just grab the available physical memory. And then console.readline, and then let's just run the application. And I have a really crazy name for my computer. I didn't build it myself, or I did build it, but somebody else installed the operating system. I would have had a cooler name than desktop, OULNDHDO, but whatever. And then here's how much physical. Looks like I have, I'm not sure how many gigs that is. Is that 1.7 gigs? Or 11.7 gigs, I'm not sure. I guess I could format that nicely with a string.format, and then here, let's use our like that, remember? And let's get a better idea. So yeah, I have 11.6 gigs of memory, I guess, available. Nice. Okay. So let's comment that out. And now let's move on and look at another example here. Suppose, for example, I wanted to just take a look at all of the subdirectories available in my documents. So I might do something like this, dim files as, or just dim files equal, and I know you're not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway in this case. mycomputer.filesystem, and I want to, and you can see all the things you can do. You can copy directories and files, create a directory, delete the directory and file, determine if a directory exists, search inside of files for text, and so much more. Move, open files, read, rename things. A lot of cool features here. So let's get directories, and I have to supply the topmost directory that I want to use and look inside of. So we're going to go users Bob and then documents. We're going to look inside of all of the subfolders. For documents, I'll just do a for each through each of the items in the files and do a console.writeLine and print those out, so each item. And so now let's run the application, and you can see here are all the subfolders inside of the C users Bob documents directory. Pretty cool. Great. And so now let's go ahead and comment that out. And the next thing I want to do for my next trick, I'm going to actually do this. Inside of the code that's available for this particular lesson, there should be a folder called test, and it just has three text documents with a famous saying in each one, like now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. There's a couple of others like that, and I'm just going to copy that entire folder, and I'm going to put it on the root of my C drive. So I'll just paste it there. And now what I want to do is come back in and do the following. So dim files equals my.computer.filesystem.find in files. And here I'm going to give it the directory to search in, that test directory. I'm going to say search for the word time. Tell me which files have the word time in them. And then I have to give it whether I want to ignore the case or should it honor the case. Let's just say ignore case. And then finally I have to give it a search type. Just do this, file IO dot, and then we want to choose search option dot. I can either search all directories or the top level only. Doesn't really matter in this case, but I'm going to only search at the top level. And now it should retrieve back a bunch of strings. We'll parse through the strings and print them all out to screen. But here we see that only one file has the word time in it. Let's confirm that by opening up our test folder and looking at the fact that here is the word time in this text file. It's not in this text file, and it's not in this text file. Okay, so it worked. Very cool. All right, next up, what I want to do is actually, let's comment this out for the moment. And we'll stick with the file system for a moment because it is so handy to do stuff like mycomputer.filesystem.copy directory. And here I'm just going to take that test folder and I'm going to copy it into a new folder called test2. And this will allow me to overwrite the folder. So yeah, I'll say, yeah, go ahead and overwrite it if it already exists, which it does not. So now here we'll just do console.write just to give us some feedback that we finished. And we'll run the application. It finishes almost immediately. And then here we'll go back, look at our C drive. Now notice that we have a test2 folder. It has the same 3 documents that the test folder has in it. Very cool. Okay, so let's comment that out and let's move on to the next example. What I want to do is now show you how to work with arguments that you can pass in to your application. So many times console window applications have the ability to pass in extra information as a series of information that is just, you use spaces to delineate between each argument you want to pass in. Then you use those arguments inside of your application to branch and to decide what functionality to enable. And so what we can do is one of two things. If we want to open up a command window and navigate to our My Namespace project, we can go Documents, so CD Documents, CD Visual Studio 2015, CD Projects, CD My Namespace. That'll get us into the solution folder, and then we're going to go CD My Namespace to get into the project folder. Then we're going to go CD bin to get into the bin directory, and then I think there's a debug directory, right? So we'll go CD debug, and then I'm going to do a dir, and you can see all of the files that are currently there. We'll come back to that in just a moment. What we'll do here now is actually do dim arguments equals my.application, and here we can get at things like the culture, the UI culture, info. I'm not sure what you can get from info. Oh, okay. Oh, info about this application. Right. Okay, I get it. And more importantly, though, I want to look at the command line arguments that are going to be passed in, and then we'll go for eaching our way through each item in the arguments, and we'll just do a console write line to show that we can actually retrieve them out and display them on screen. But ideally here we would do some logic inside of our application and change the functionality based on the arguments that are being passed in. So let's go ahead and just run the application once to compile it. So that will get it compiled. But now I can open up here and just go my namespace.exe, and then I'll just do A, B, C, and D. Notice that I use different capitalization, and it actually prints out each of those to a different line using console.writeLine. Very cool. Now, if I didn't want to go to all this work inside of the command prompt window to navigate into the project directory, I could use a special feature inside of Visual Studio that allows me to adjust the properties of my project. So I'm going to right click on the project name in the Solution Explorer and select the Properties option. And here we're going to go to the Debug tab on the left hand side and type in our arguments. I think we already did A, B, C, D. Let's go E, F, G, H, and I. All right, so we're giving it 5 more command line arguments. We'll save this and then rerun our application. And this time you can see that it gives lowercase e, uppercase f, lowercase g, uppercase I, h, and then lowercase I. And we can basically test our command line arguments right here from inside of Visual Studio. So just so you know. All right, let's comment all this out. So that's another very cool little thing we can do with the My Namespace. Let's move on and talk about one other thing. Let's stay in that properties editor and go to let's go to settings. So here we have this little grid where we can actually add settings that we can write to and retrieve between runs of our application. So we might want to save the user settings, what their preferences are in this app config file. And we could write and open up that app config file and look at the XML ourselves where it stores all these values. But this is a much nicer editor that we can work in. So I might want to store something like first value and set that equal to Bob. And then go second value and set that equal to like Conrad, right? So now we have 2 strings that are stored in our app config, and I can retrieve them out and use them inside of my application using the my.settings.firstValue. Notice that it automatically creates a property called first value and creates one called second value automatically because we created those keys inside of our settings tab of our properties. So let's go, let's do this, console.writeLine, and we'll do a before, and here I'm gonna just print out my.settings.firstValue, and then my.settings.secondValue. And then I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll have a little fun here. Let's grab this. Let's make a change to it. We'll set first value equal to Beth instead of Bob. And then we'll set the second value equal to Grant instead of Conrad. And then we'll save those changes. And then we'll go ahead and print this out again, except this time we'll do after. And let's just grab this and just add an empty line there. All right, so this should be interesting. I'll go ahead and get rid of that too, or actually let's just comment it out. Okay. All right, a lot of typing here, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to open up and grab the current values inside of the app config, and then I'm going to change the values and save them and then display what the new settings are here in my console window application. And you can see, whoops, we get the before and the after as the same. I wonder why that happened. And let me try this. Try to reset our settings here, and let's go ahead and run it now. All right, there we go. Now we got what we needed. All right, very cool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. But as you can see, there's a lot of things that you can do with the My Namespace. There's even more. I'll let you go ahead and explore it and learn more on your own. But at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next topic. If you're still with me, you're doing great. Keep pushing through. We're so far along at this point. We're just tacking on other great information to make your applications even richer. And we'll do that, continue that process in the next lesson. We'll see you there. Thanks.